Welcome back to the Real Power Podcast. Today we have another awesome guest, Josh Briner. Josh is the owner of Vibe, a short-term rental management company based here in upstate New York. He's also a real estate investor himself and runs the largest Airbnb Facebook group in upstate New York with 12,000 members. Great group, by the way. Goal of the show, I was just telling Josh, really want it to be a masterclass on Airbnb and midterm rentals and all that whole space, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs listening who want to get into real estate, Airbnb can be a great route. People do very, very well in the industry, and Josh is one of the most knowledgeable guys in the field. So very, very excited to have him on, and I think there will be a lot of gold nuggets in this episode. So Josh, thank you for being here, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro.
Take us back to like the start of really your entrepreneurial journey. How did you get into the whole entrepreneurial space?
So like, I don't have like a sob story. You know, I had two parents that loved me, grew up pretty good, but they weren't like rich. So like seeing some of the financial struggles they had early on definitely had like an impact on me. Just like more that they would have liked to do with life, you know, that maybe like if they had more money, they could have done.
Yeah.
So like financial freedom, I wanted to be free of like that stress that people around me and in my family had to experience because they didn't have the finances to cover it. And it's like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I also, you know, was going to college and I got my master's in education. I became a teacher. And obviously like those two things are not conducive with one another. So I decided like, you know, being a teacher, you get a lot of breaks. I'm going to start getting into like flips, you know, I can swing a hammer.
Yep.
I had a good network of people around me that would help me and like show me how to hang drywall and like do mud work and stuff like that. I was very fortunate for that. And, yeah, man, just wanted that financial freedom. Like that's ultimately what I was after, that financial freedom, and keyword being freedom, not financial.
Yeah.
That's much more important to me. And I just started off with flips. I started going to the breakfast meetups. I don't think you were ever there, Cam. Were you there?
Was it East Ave Wegmans ones?
Yeah.
I went to a couple of them.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the OG group.
Yeah, OGs, man.
Yep.
But I bring it up a lot because it was so formative for me. And like when I talk to like young entrepreneurs, it's like, dude, start that social networking ASAP.
Yes.
And going there was like so formative, and it kind of guided me down the path of entrepreneurship that I'm on now, which is short-term rentals and midterm rentals and stuff like that.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like financial freedom is what draws so many people into the entrepreneurial space, and like more and more, especially with the age of the internet, there's so much information out there and so many opportunities and paths you can take to really reach financial freedom. And real estate, as you and I both know, is one of the most powerful ways to do it. It's what drew me into it, and so many local people in Rochester are absolutely crushing it in real estate. So
For sure.
Talk about that first flip that you got into and how that went.
So I bought a house at auction for, I want to say like, what did I pay? Like $57,000, something like that, off Lake Avenue in Rochester. And
Where on Lake Ave?
Holcroft Road.
Okay, so that's
So it was
farther
like,
down.
Yeah, it's kind of like a few miles away from Charlotte. So
Oh,
like
okay, so not too
right
far
by
down.
like Turning Point Park.
Yeah, I have one right on Lake Ave. It's almost to the Pattonwood Bridge. It's like 10 houses down,
Okay.
so almost in Irondequoit, basically.
Yeah.
But it's an underrated area, that Charlotte area.
Dude, I mean, it's funny. Like, so again, I was a teacher. At the time, I wasn't even a teacher. I'm just like a line staff working with at-risk youth. So I'm getting paid like no money. But my schedule was pretty easy and I got a lot of time off, which is cool. So I just started working on this house my time off. I did all types of really stupid things. Like just, it was truly a paid internship. I stippled all the walls. Do you know what that is?
No.
It's so ugly. It was the stupidest idea. I like flashed them with mud, and then I like textured every wall in the house because I thought it looked good, and like painted them brown. It was just awful, dude. Just did all types of stupid stuff. Did some cool stuff too. Luckily, the bones of the house were really good, and I was willing to work hard. By the time I was ready to sell it, I think I made like 55, 60 grand.
On your first flip.
My first flip, yeah.
Wow, dude.
And I thought I was the man, dude. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I did it. The person that bought that house for me that I actually felt bad for, they sold it the next year for 60 grand as well. They didn't do anything. So they also made 60 grand without doing anything in 1 year.
That was just because of the market.
Because I totally misread the market. But
Yeah.
the cool thing is, like, we're talking about that first flip, so I'll go into my second one. My second big one. I had my money from my my flip, and I was doing a little cryptocurrency trading at the time, and I did okay on that. So it's like, where am I going to reinvest this money? And I was going to the housing auctions, and there was this house in Penfield I really liked, and this dude like sent me packing. Like I was talking all types of crap. I was like, guys, this is my house. Like, I'm going to take it. Like, I'm house hacking. I'm going to live there. I'll sleep on drywall dust. I don't care. So, like, I really thought I had it. And, like, this guy outbid me in, like, 30-something seconds. I was like, crap.
Yeah.
Then I just went to the MLS. I went to the MLS because I had been really perseverating on the auctions.
Yeah.
And I found a 3,000-something square foot colonial built in 1989, which is, like, super rare, that just looked like hell, but everything was cosmetic.
Where was it?
Canandaigua. So that's where I live now.
Yeah.
And then it also had a loft above the garage that wasn't finished. So I'm like, yo, I can house hack this twice and I can live in the top 2 floors.
Yep.
And I can HELOC it.
Damn.
Yeah, so that's
you
what I
found
did.
that on what year was that?
Man, this must have been 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So it was a while ago.
That was my late 20s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And so it was important to me. I wanted to be able to burr, obviously. I wanted to get my money back out. I wanted to be able to house hack because I did not want to pay my mortgage while I lived there. And I wanted to be able to start getting into that short-term rental space.
Yep.
Carefully.
Dipping your toes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it allowed me to do all those things, man.
And you still live in that property today?
Yeah. I can't leave. I get paid to live there. It's tough to pass up.
Canandaigua was nice too.
I love Canandaigua, man.
Yeah.
I'm a homer. I'm a Finger Lakes homer.
Hell yeah, man.
I like the Finger Lakes, especially Canandaigua. It's beautiful.
It is. That's awesome. So fast forward to your next deal, did you keep doing flips or did you start to get into Airbnb at that point?
So what I did, we were talking about those breakfast meetups.
Yeah.
When I was doing those breakfast meetups is right when I had bought my new house. And I was really kind of looking for that guidance. Like, what am I going to do? What direction am I going to go? And the men and women at those meetups were just like killers, dude. Like,
unbelievable. So many good people.
I got all these properties and I got this infrastructure built out for flips and I have this. I'm like, I honestly don't want to compete against all these people. Like, I want to find my lane. What's my lane? And I was already interested in Airbnbs. Like, I can seize this lane. There's nobody there. But again, I still had to like carry out my flips, stuff like that. So once I did that and I, burred my way out of it, which if you don't know what burr is, look it up. It's an important strategy.
Yep.
Burred my way out of it. I immediately bought 2 more short-term rentals with my capital and I flipped those as well. Burred my way out of those. I was like, this is cool, but this is going to take me a really long time to continue to do it this way. And that's when I started figuring out like, well, how can I be in the short-term rental game and scale at a rate that I'm satisfied with? That's kind of what led me to where I'm at now.
Took that other avenue.
Yeah.
And Vibe was born.
Vibe was born, man. And it's funny because I've predicted, I've had my fingers on the pulse of some things like in the right way and the wrong way. And one thing I did not see was the housing market. I did not think the housing market was going to keep up where it was like in like 2017, 2018. I was like, no way. This is gonna keep up.
I think
And
everybody
so
thought
wrong.
that.
Yeah. So had I known, being a Monday morning quarterback, I probably would have stuck with doing some flips too. I would have done both. So I got out of the flip game and that was a mistake, but I think I had the short-term rental market pretty well figured.
Sure.
Pretty well pinned.
Yeah.
I've never entered the space with rose-colored glasses. I was looking at the trends. I was looking at the data. I was confident that short-term rentals are here to stay, but also there's things like market saturation, regulation, taxation, all the bad shuns that you can imagine can really impact that space. So not only did I want to scale at a more exponential rate that I couldn't do just continually burring potential short-term rentals, I wanted to have concrete data of my own creation that I could leverage to buy future assets.
Yeah.
Along with a business I could leverage to buy future assets.
Super smart, dude.
Yeah.
Really is. And the part about like wanting to make sure you're knowledgeable and knowing like all the things that could go wrong and all the negative parts about the business and really dive in and learn it. Because I think a lot of people do look at it through like rose-colored glasses and think, oh, this is easy. And then they get started and there's all this shit that they have to deal with that they didn't even see. And you already knowing like, oh, this could come up, that was smart.
Well, it's truly like, it is not real estate, it is hospitality. And you have to be very hospitable. And it is difficult, man. I was just telling you, like, right before this interview, like, I'm dealing with a situation where I've had a family that has planned a family vacation for now months and months and months that is staying at one of my houses where an entire water system, the whole circuit board fried. Now they have no water. And it's 4th of July week, and I can't relocate them. I can give them all their money back and apologize 100 times.
Yeah,
but they still want to rip my head off, and I don't blame them. I
Yeah.
want to rip my head off too. My whole family vacation's ruined. So you really take on like a lot in this business. Like if you're a feeler, like I'm very much a feeler. I'm very empathic in a lot of ways.
Me too.
Dude, I feel all that stuff so hard, and it messes with me. It messes with my mental.
Yeah.
Like driving here, I'm like, crap. I got to do this podcast interview, and in the back of my mind, I'm gonna be thinking about this family that their whole vacation just got destroyed. It sucks, man. It's hard.
Good for you for being here and actually following through on this, because you could have easily said, shit, man, I can't do it today. But
no, I appreciate it. But like I never viewed this business with rose-colored glasses, man. I knew that there was going to be difficulties. A lot of like the stuff you see coming down the pipeline from New York State and stuff.
Yeah.
It's scary, but the cool thing is why I got into the market in the first place, I believe in the short-term rental model, and I believe in the area. You know, this is a nice area. Upstate New York's beautiful. We have a lot to offer.
Yeah. Finger Lakes, or people come from all across the world to the Finger Lakes. They really do.
Oh, I get people, I mean, investors especially. Like, I'm getting a lot of investors like Pennsylvania, New Jersey, California. Like, Finger Lakes is...
It's a shit.
Dude, I got somebody that is this guy, and he owns like 20 properties all around. What lake does he own around? I think around Seneca. He's up in like the Himrod area. Old timer. And he was like looking into management at one point. He never ended up going with management, but I got a chance to pick his brain, talk to him. He was from Napa Valley originally. So he left the Finger Lakes in like the 70s. This guy was like as old as God. He's like 90 or something. Left in the 70s, went to Napa Valley and watched what happened in Napa Valley for like 20 years. So he saw this whole thing. He's like, oh, wow, look at that. Comes back to the Finger Lakes, and he's like, this looks familiar.
Yeah.
And he started buying up properties around the water, dude. Just had a home run.
Yep.
Because when he left in the 70s, like there was no limos. There was like some wineries and stuff. It was cool, but so he watched, and he built up this really cool business for himself.
He saw what was around the corner.
Dude, and that's half the game. Like, how's your vision, man? Are you watching closely? You better. Yeah. Because there's opportunities there, and if you're not watching closely, you're going to miss them.
Let's talk quick about your current portfolio, what you own. Give people an idea of, like, aside from the vibe stuff, like, what does your personal portfolio look like right now?
Yeah, so I pivoted real quick. Like, I did not want to buy. I didn't want to own long-term rentals in our area. I'm not saying like it's not good. It's just not for me. It's not what I want to do right now.
Yep.
You can mine the gold or you can sell the shovels. I was pretty sure I wanted to sell the shovels, but I eventually want to use all the money I make selling the shovels to mine the gold. You know, so that's a long-winded way of saying, like, I flipped 2 houses, bought my current primary residence, he locked it, bought 3 more. So I have 2 at my primary residence, 3 in other locations, 2 in Naples, 1 in Charlotte. And that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't really want to buy until my business is where I want it. And I have the data that makes me feel like secure.
Yep.
That's what I really am after, data.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm in the same kind of boat. I have a small portfolio of long-term rentals, but my original plan, I wanted to keep buying them. Now I'm at a point where, this business is worth a lot more to me, and my money is better invested here. Get this thing cash flowing like a beast, and then I'll look to invest back into, and not even smaller deals, probably like bigger commercial deals that I want to get into in the future too. So
yeah, well, you look at, like, it's not just your money, it's your time, which is your money. It's your opportunity cost. Like, I remember my business partner and I, JC, we own a cabin together in Naples, and we were there like multiple times a week, you know, and like we had been talking about like starting Vibe, doing the short-term rental management company. And like at one point when we owned that cabin and we were the ones working on it, we actually started Vibe. We had like 2 or 3 houses. Like it was in its infancy. And like one day I'm like, dude, if you like turn me loose from hanging drywall and sanding logs on the log cabin, like I could probably have us like 5 properties locked in the next month, you know, like I'm spending my time here. Like, what's more valuable?
Yep.
And it kind of, again, it's the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Like, how much time do you want to spend on one thing relative to another, and what's going to make you more money?
Yeah, and people don't think about that. There is so much, like, everywhere your time is spent, there is an opportunity cost. You could be doing something at a higher level, higher value task for yourself. So that's really, really good point. What are the biggest mistakes you see new Airbnb hosts make these days?
So I would say, like, the biggest mistake is, like, one, why is it an Airbnb? Like, oh, here's my Airbnb. It's like, yeah, why? It's like, because Gammy died and I inherited it with all Gammy's original furniture in there. Like, that's not an Airbnb. That's a house that you inherited, right? Yeah. What makes it a short-term rental? What amenities are you offering? Are you in a good location? And I'm not against, like, urban short-term rentals are fine, but you're targeting a different demographic. It's an entire different business strategy. So, like, an urban short-term rental is, you know, in a really transient area, you're going to have lower occupancies. You're going to have totally different pricing strategy relative to, like, my primary focus, which is experience short-term rentals and, like, vacation going short-term rentals, rural short-term rentals, right? which is like a much longer occupancy, totally different pricing strategy. Like if you look at like an urban short-term rental compared to a rural, right? A rural short-term rental, like one of my houses on, let's take Cuca Lake, for example, it's going to make probably 80% of its revenue between Labor Day and Memorial Day. Memorial Day and Labor Day.
Yep.
That's wild, right? So like a big question like I've had to ask myself is, well, what do I do with those other 9 months? Like there's still 9 months left. What do we do about that, right? So we do like a lot of hybrid properties, for example. So I'll flip them. Like my house is in Geneva.
Yeah.
I'll flip them to midterm rentals in the off season. So it's a midterm rental for like 6 dead months. Because with Geneva specifically, that market specifically, like you can capture like the leaf peepers past Labor Day. You can capture like wedding season, but you're going to be pretty dead in the off season. But you got colleges nearby and you have a hospital nearby, right? So it's like, how do I tap into that midterm rental market?
Talk about what midterm rentals are for people who
So
don't know.
midterm rentals is anything that's 29 days or longer. Being in New York State, we really like to target traveling nurses. And the reason we like to target traveling nurses is because you don't run the same risk of them like squatting at your house. You know, they're out of state, they come vetted. Like I say, like, let me see your contract. Once I see their contract, I know that they're not like criminals, they're law-abiding citizens, you know, because they got background check before they can come work here. You know, they got a license, they're from Georgia, they don't got roots here. Like perfect, you know? But you can do other professionals as well. You can tap into executives. You can tap into all types of different people that are just like, we get a lot of people like from fires. You know, their home caught on fire. And now their insurance is going to pay to relocate them for a certain amount of time.
Go.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in the midterm rental market and its future. We are becoming more transient as a species. We're moving around more. We're much more nomadic. So, you know, I think we're headed in a direction where midterm rentals are going to continue to be a bigger and bigger thing.
Yeah, and it's a great hybrid between, just like you said, like Airbnb in the hot summer months when, you know, that's the high booking season. And then what are you doing with your property the rest of the year? Midterm rental.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's a great like synergistic kind of thing.
So those midterm rentals are really good. They're the future, the hybrid properties between the short term and midterm, or even just like, I tell people all the time, like you're asking earlier, like a lot of people, it's like, well, I got Gammy's house and now it's a short-term rental. Like, no, it's not. The same thing goes for like houses that are too big or too small, or they're falling in weird areas, right? Where it's like, you have a 16-person house in Rochester. Like, that's not good for you. That's bad.
Yeah.
You know, some people make it work. Me personally, I'm not doing it. We do like sister listings. So I'll break up a house and I'll rent it by the room, especially for midterm rentals. So if I got a bunch of nurses and they all want to stay in a house, they can rent the rooms for like $1,200 a room. They love it, man.
Yeah.
Because they're there to work and make money.
Yep.
And they have like a common culture. They're all nurses. A lot of them are working at the same place. So that's worked out great for us too.
And your revenue goes way up. When,
doing room sharing has worked out really well. We have a room sharing situation on Marsh Street in Rochester that does real well. We have a couple more throughout Rochester that are solid.
Really, really great model. And we've tried it on one of our properties too. And
are you getting into the midterm rental thing?
We did rent by room. So we didn't do it as a midterm. We're thinking about midterm, but young professionals who are just looking for housing, and like you just said, they just want a little space. We put locks on the doors, so that's kind of like their unit.
That's the key, yep.
Share the kitchen, share the common areas. Make sure you have house rules written out so that everyone knows like it's not a free for all. You put your shit back when you're done. You clean your dishes. You do all that. But it's worked really well. I will say it's a lot more work in management than obviously a normal long-term rental where it's just one tenant in there. But if you're younger and especially in today's market where cash flow is hard to find, it's a great option to turn your property into a rent by room scenario.
Yeah.
But also knowing in the future, hopefully that the numbers can work as a long-term rental down the road.
Exactly.
Having multiple exit strategies.
Key. So real quick, where are you finding your nurses primarily?
They're actually not nurses. These are just normal people with just corporate jobs that are just younger professionals. And we've just gotten lucky. We found them on Facebook Marketplace, I think.
There you go.
Vetted them. They all had great credit scores, income, and it's worked for us. So,
nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So a thing I'm big on too is what is your like backup plan? Because short-term rentals are not a sure thing. They're not guaranteed. I've seen people like, and that another reason I started Vibe, it's like when one of my clients' properties fails, I feel bad, but I also know that I did what I could have done to make it a success. the failures often come like they involve me in the process way too late. Here's my short-term rental. It's another one of those scenarios like, not really, but I'm going to try for you. I'm going to try to make this a success. Or like a regulation just ruins them, you know? So it's like, what is your backup plan? That's why I always like advocate for what I call the trifecta. So I'm always going short-term rental first. That's my first goal. My second goal is midterm rental. My third goal is flip.
Yeah.
So the cool thing is with like the Finger Lakes in particular, there's a big appreciation play. Like you can almost always flip your way out of a deal on the Finger Lakes. They're not making new land on the Finger Lakes. The houses are highly sought after. So we've seen the prices grow up exponentially over the last just 6-7 years alone.
Yeah.
But better make sure that backup plan is there.
Yep.
Not only that, it's like, you ever try to refi a log cabin with no traditional heat source with a bank? It's not easy. So if you want to burr, like we made it work with our cabin, but if you are burring, like talk to a bank first and make sure it's something they're going to put a mortgage on.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mortgage that's going to get you your money back out of the deal.
Yep.
That's rough. So, and that's why this business is so convoluted and multifaceted, where it's like, it's tough to find a safe play. Like, what's the safe play here? You know, it's difficult to find, but make sure you have at least one backup plan.
At least one, yeah. And
for sure.
And so many people, to your point, like they inherit a house and they're like, oh, just gonna throw it on Airbnb, right? Make all this money. It's like, all right, first of all, you're running a business with an Airbnb. Second of all, like, what are you gonna do if that doesn't work out and your guests aren't booking, you're not getting the bookings you need? Like, what's your backup plan?
And that was another big reason. Like, so something I'm real big on, like, for all the time I spend studying like business, stuff like that, I spend way more time on like psychology. And I think that understanding the human condition and human being, like how to be a human and how other people be human, is exponentially more valuable than reading every business book that exists. That's just my own personal take.
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
So I'm real big on that. And I try to be insightful, and I try to understand kind of where I fall on like the big 5 personality traits, and like where I fall in conscientiousness and neuroticism and openness and the things that like really matter. And I'm like, man, I got some shortcomings here that are not conducive to running a business. How do I fix this ASAP? You know, like I want my business to be the best. I'm not the best person to run certain facets of my business.
Yeah.
So I'm not super high in conscientiousness, for example. So my business partner is a relatively conscientious person, right? I'm not always the best communicator. So like, I have 24-hour staff that are great communicators, right? You know, things like that are just so important to finding success. And it's like, man, fire yourself from what you're bad at.
Yeah.
People want to do everything. And I don't, honestly, I don't get the mentality. Like if the difference between $20,000 a year in my bank account is me doing something I suck at and having to invest my time in that or not, like, I don't care about the 20 grand, dude. Like, I just don't. Like, I'd much, and in the long run, that 20 grand is going to cost you money. Because now you're doing something you suck at, and it's going to impact your business in a negative way. So, you know, I don't remember if we even started talking about this on the podcast. Before the podcast, I think we were talking a little bit about, like, when we started Vibe, it was like, man, give me your property, I'll take it. You know, because I wanted to get cash flowing so I could hire these people that were better than me, right? Like, I knew, like, man, I have to get a grade A like maintenance manager. It's a huge part of this business. Like, man, if you think you're going to run a short-term rental and never have to drive over there to bring salt or a fan broke or the comforter was dirty, like whatever, like you are out of your mind, man. Like you are going to be on the road. You know, ideally we want to mitigate that and do it as infrequently as we possibly can. But, you know, ideally is not reality. So like I hired a great maintenance manager. Like, it was years of good karma working with at-risk youth that was gifted to me. Same thing with like my my VA. Like you were complimenting my videos earlier. Like just a jack of all trades, man. She's a beast. She edits my videos. She handles my phones. So yeah, man, firing yourself from the things you're bad at and being cognizant of the things you're bad at, I think is such an underrated and valuable skill.
It really is.
That I try to focus on.
And so many entrepreneurs, they just want to, just naturally, and I'm guilty of it too. You want to get better at the things you're not good at, but there's another path to take, and it's find the people who can fill those holes, right?
Yeah. Did you ever read? So I'm assuming, how old are you again?
28.
Oh, you're a lot younger than me. Okay, so I'm 34. So was Tim Ferriss on the scene?
Oh,
when you were? Okay.
Big Tim Ferriss guy.
Yeah. So I've kind of dropped off from him since. Like I haven't consumed his stuff, but I used to consume a lot of his stuff.
I did too. Yep.
And one of the things Tim Ferriss would say is like, learn in your 20s and build in your 30s. And I always liked that a lot because it fit where I was at. So it made me feel good. I'm like, all right, that's basically what I'm doing, right? I'm learning. Like, you don't have to monetize everything right away.
Nope.
That's the trap, man. People are always like, I got to start making money now. Like, I see it with my business because I see the money coming. I'm like, man, it'd be nice to reach for that. Take that golden apple, you know? But I'm like, what if I just let it keep growing? Or what if I take that golden apple and I don't eat it and I reinvest it into another facet of my business that could improve or be better? It's like, man, that's where the sauce is at to me.
Man. You're preaching.
Like, scale it, grow the thing, invest in the right resources. You know, there's that famous video of Bezos driving his like Prius when he's worth like $8 billion. He's like, this Prius is sweet. I like this Prius.
I love it, man. It's such a good point. Everyone's so quick to try to monetize everything. Even with something like this podcast, like, I am of the mentality, I do not care if it makes $1 for 1, 2, 3 years. I am using it as a vehicle, number one, to get better at communication, to network, to learn from people who are better than me, to get great content off of, right? To build my personal brand. And if I want to monetize down the road when I actually have built it up, there's a time and place to do that. But everyone wants to make the quick dollar right away when what you just said is so valuable. Learning in your 20s. And I think even taking it a little to like a next step is you can learn in the first half of your 20s and start building in the second half of your 20s. And that's kind of what I'm doing too.
Yeah.
But in those first half of your 20s, learn, man. Listen to the podcast, read the books, take the courses. Don't worry about earning. Like, learn before you earn.
For sure. Like, 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. I mean, like, you should be listening and watching 2 times more than you talk in general, in my opinion, but especially when you're young. And then it's like, okay, I watched. Now, how am I going to bring value?
Yep.
How am I going to bring value to somebody that knows a lot more than me, right? And it's like, man, people that are affluent and successful are just happy to share how they achieve their success and teach you, just solve one of their problems.
And how do you, let's say a young entrepreneur comes to Josh, how can they bring value to you, for example?
Find a problem I have and solve it. Like, I'm trying to think
Got
of
lots of problems.
Yeah, I mean...
Put out the fire that he's dealing with right now.
It's constant fires, man. You know, something for me right now, if somebody could come to me and really hone in my pricing strategy, for example, like, that's something we're really trying to improve at Vibe. Like, having a top-notch pricing strategy is really important for the future of short-term rentals. Like, it is 2024, next year's gonna be 2025, and we need to operate in those time frames. We can't pretend that it's 1970 and like have a direct mail campaign to get bookings. Like, dude, you gotta have your fingers on the pulse of what's going on right now. And that's something, for example, that if somebody was like, hey, I know how to make your pricing strategy aces, be like, good, show me, do it for me, and I'll give you whatever it is I can give you in return.
Seriously, like, if you can solve those problems, the people will be like, they will give you anything. Let's talk about who you should have on your team as an Airbnb host, right? Cleaner, contract, like all those people you need to find in order to successfully run an Airbnb operation.
When I looked at the landscape of short-term rentals and I wanted to start a management business, I wanted to go in with 2 eyes wide open, and I wanted to make sure I was seeing everything carefully. So again, I watched and I listened for a while, and I saw some recurring themes and some things that I thought were going to cause other companies to drop off and fail. One of the recurring themes I was finding is like hiring cleaners internally. I thought was a mistake. Cleaning is a very difficult job. It's hard, man. It's hard work. You're scrubbing toilets, but it can also be very lucrative. You can make good money.
Yeah.
You know, you set the cleaning fee. If you got a 3-bed, one bath, 3-bed house, like you're looking at probably about a $200 cleaning fee. And if you got somebody that can go in there, bust ass, and move quick, they could make $50 an hour. It's like, good for you. We wouldn't question an electrician making $50 an hour.
No.
So if a cleaner's making $50 an hour, great. I don't want to deal with the headache. You know, don't call me when it's a hard clean, and I'm not going to call you when one person slept at the house and they left it immaculate, and you just made $200 in an hour. Yeah. All right, let's agree on that. Leave me alone. I'll leave you alone. Do your job. Great. And it's obviously like I have great relationships with my cleaners, and like we're always in communication. But I'm being moderately facetious. But that's a long-winded way of saying I want to partner with small business owners like myself in the cleaning space. And then when I found the ones that I liked best and were the best, I just load them up. So we have cleaners that work exclusively for Vibe. They'll clean 6-7 of our properties, but they're not Vibe employees. They're 1099 employees. And that has worked really well. The only issues we've had like missed cleanings because of like tech failures, but we've never had a situation where it's like, we just don't got the staff to handle this. Like if one of my cleaners hits me up like, hey, Josh, I can't do this cleaning tomorrow. It's like, all right, give me a sec. And I'll text 3 other cleaners. Yeah, sure, no problem. Like they're there to work. They want the money. So that's a big thing. You're asking about staff and like that's my personal philosophy on cleaning. That was my philosophy when I entered the business. And so far I've been proven right.
Yeah.
Because all the companies I know that were hiring internal cleaners are no longer doing that. They're partnering with people the same way that I do.
Got it.
A maintenance manager / hospitality manager is key because it's when people are on vacation, they don't want to be bothered even with remedial tasks. And I don't blame them. They just paid good money to stay at a house. I mean, some of these lake houses, you're over $1,000 a night. You got a $400 cleaning fee. Now you want me to go to the store and replace this light bulb or like whatever was missed during the turnover? It's like no chance. Aces, I get it. Let me send my guy out there. I go personally on some of these calls sometimes, you know, because I can make phone calls and run my business from my truck. So I'm just driving, doing what I have to do anyway. I'll go change a light bulb. What do you need? You know? Yeah. So stuff, but having a maintenance manager, so I'm not always having to do stuff like that, is so key. And then having 24-hour guest communication is so key. So like I'm always on my communication. I always see the communications that's going on. I chime in when necessary, but overall, I have my staff doing that. You know, it's a funny story. So like two of my staff are located in the Philippines, and they're great. You know, I went through a long process of finding the right people.
Me too. So when you find the right ones,
oh my God, English is great. Literally like the nicest people in the world. They work so hard.
Great values over there.
Yeah. And it's like, yo, my grammar is literally worse than theirs. Like I had one that was like, she's like, hey, I think May's working too hard. Like she's sending these messages on Airbnb. Like they're making no sense. I don't think she's getting much sleep. I'm looking like, yeah, I sent that. sorry about that. You're right. It doesn't make much sense. But yeah, man, they crush. So like for me, that's important. But again, you can't relinquish the entire thing. You have to watch what's going on. You have to know what's going on. But it's like trust in your assets, trust in the people that you teach and the systems you create, while also having everybody operate under the auspices of knowing I got my eye on this thing. Yeah, it's not totally in your hands. I'm watching. I know what's going on, and that's worked out real good for me. So again, like that 24-hour guest communication is huge. Like I don't know about you, but I don't want to field phone calls at 1 a.m. No one does. But we have to in our business. It has to get done. It has to be done. So it's like, and then I got it set up. So if there's an actual emergency that requires me at 1 a.m., they call me. Wake me up out of bed. I'll get out of bed. What are we dealing with? You know? But I prefer not to answer a question on where the salt shaker is at 1 a.m. Don't want to do that. You know? So I outsource that work. But yeah, man, maintenance manager, great relationships with cleaners, great relationships with other vendors. Like have you tried to hire anybody to do anything in the trades in the last like few years? It's difficult, dude. Yeah, like it's hard.
I have a father-in-law who's a contractor. So.
They're killing. They're making great money. It's something I actually considered before doing Vibe. I was like, I might just start a contracting business. Like I was getting pretty handy. Like the money was right, but you have to build relationships with these people where they're willing to pick up your phone call. Like, hey, I got another one of these little jobs. It's like, well, I get one of these little jobs from Vibe once a week. Now it's adding up. Now they're not a pain in the ass. They're lining my pockets. I'm going to switch out an outlet or something. I'm gonna get paid $250 for a half hour of work. I'll show up, you know? So that's really important. Knowing your local vendors that aren't just cleaners, like your more specialized skill maintenance professionals is very important as well.
And how would you recommend you find these people? Through networking?
So a big thing our real estate networking group, Upstate New York Real Estate Investors. I'm a bit like one of like the headlines, a tagline of our group is like, your network is your net worth, right? But it's like, your net worth is your network. It goes both ways. It's like control the network, control the net worth. And I was real big on that. And again, going back to like watching in my very formative years, it's like, man, how do I create a indirect marketing funnel for my business that I can use infinitely to continue to drive myself more business that will also bring people lots of value where it's cool. Like there's that scene in the Social Network where homeboy keeps trying to get Mark Zuckerberg to monetize. He's like, it's not cool. It's not cool yet. We're not monetizing until it's cool. Yeah. So I was doing it's like Facebook, hee hee ha ha. I get it. It's for like old people like me. It's not TikTok, but guess what? That's where the money's at. The old people are the ones with money. So I saw like what Marty Grisanti was doing with Upstate New York Real Estate Investors. I go, this is real smart. You know, I like this. So I started Upstate New York Airbnb Investors.
And it has exploded, man.
Yeah, it's done real well. So I have that one, and then I have Direct Book Upstate New York Airbnbs. So between the two of them, there's always over 15,000 people.
It's crazy.
And then once I got to a point where I actually had something to offer, I didn't like, this was always kind of my long-term goal was to kind of create an alliance with Marty because I liked what Marty was doing. I liked his group, and I wanted to be a part of that. But I'm not going to come with my hat out like, here I am, But once I had 10,000 people in my group,
It's like, hey, I got some leverage here.
yeah, now we both have something cool. What can we do with that, you know? And we kind of started commingling our meetups, and that's been really lovely. That's a bloviated way of saying I can throw something up in my Facebook group, and I can have, you know, I need so-and-so in Cuca, an electrician or whatever. And people respond, you know, and that's a great, like, leverage your local Facebook groups.
Totally.
It's so valuable, man. Just so much value. So I love that.
So moral of the story there is find the Facebook group, find the community that is doing Airbnb, doing the stuff you want to do. That's where you can find the good contractors, the cleaners, your team.
For sure. And like, we all know, like, I'm real big, again, like, I'm real big on indirect marketing. I'm not an in-your-face type of dude. Like, anybody that ever wants to call me and ask questions about short-term rentals, I don't sell Vibe, man. Like, unless you want to be sold on it, I'll tell you what we can do.
Yeah.
But I'm not, like, putting a contract in your face. Not my style, dude. Don't do it. So that's a way of saying, like, I'm tight with other property managers and people that know what I do. We all talk to each other, and we're, like, friendly with each other. And, like, just because somebody else is eating doesn't mean they're eating off your plate. You know, like, instead of, you know, looking at that person as your competition, look at them as an ally and maybe a friend. And then you could start sharing resources.
Yep.
That's nice.
That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
It's abundance over.
All about relationships, man.
Yep. Let's talk about Airbnb arbitrage. This is a really...
I'm really glad we're talking about this, by the way. It's important.
Okay. This is a really cool way of getting into the Airbnb game without actually owning the property. So talk real quick about what that is, what Airbnb arbitrage is.
So Airbnb arbitrage is when, let's say I have an apartment in Rochester and it's right by the airport, and I am willing to rent it as a long-term rental for $1,500 a month. Somebody that's into Airbnb arbitrage might come up to me and say, Josh, I'm going to rent this apartment. Full disclosure, I'm going to put up on Airbnb, but this thing's going to get cleaned after every guest. I'm going to be doing inspections after every guest. I'm going to get you your $1,500 a month, and it's going to be great. I'm like, all right, deal. Now, if they make $2,500 a month, they're going to pocket the difference of what they've made and pay me my monthly long-term rental fee. That's what Airbnb arbitrage is. That's what arbitrage is. I do not like arbitrage. I've never liked arbitrage. Now, there's a way to approach arbitrage in the right headspace that makes sense in our general area. We're talking about upstate New York, right?
Okay.
So it's a paid internship, right? Like, if you are somebody that's interested in short-term rentals and short-term rental investing and you want to learn the game, again, going back to our conversations about monetizing, like, don't worry about monetizing yet. Don't worry about that. People used to be trade apprentices for like 7 years before they made a cent, you know? Like, learn your trade and what it is. Great way to learn. You know, it's pretty hard to mess up, but as an actual business model, I don't like it. You know, it's something I considered before I started Vibe. It's like, I could just arbitrage. It's a lot of work. You're going primarily in highly transient urban locations if you're doing arbitrage, almost always. Arbitrage businesses don't have a lot of value. Like, if you look at my business as a property management business that's localized, my business has value. There's equity in my business. Arbitrage businesses, the last one that sold successfully, I think sold in like 2017 or something like that. So listen, there's people making way more money than me doing arbitrage, and it works for them, and that's great. Me personally, I'm not into it. If you enter the arbitrage space, I think you should be doing it as a cheap way to learn the business.
As a stepping stone.
For sure. And if that's your mentality and that's why you're doing it, aces, man. I love it. But if your mentality is, I'm going to create the next best arbitrage business, I don't like it, and I would advise against it. There's a fellow investor we know that, like, before I started Vibe, this person called me. It was like, hey, I'm going to get an arbitrage in Rochester. I was like, don't do it, man. You're going to waste your time. You're going to waste your money. If you do it to learn, but don't do it to make money. He's like, and he went ahead and did it. Like, it just shut down the whole operation like last year, man. It didn't work. It doesn't work. It's not a business model I like.
Yeah, you know, that's really good insight, because I think, to your point, it isn't, in my eyes, either like a long-term play, and obviously people are doing it successfully. Everyone, you know, there's people out there, but it should be, just like you said, an apprenticeship, an internship. Learn how to get into that game of Airbnb, and then take that cash flow and go get an actual Airbnb yourself, and then build a business around that, or even put the money somewhere else. So it's a great way to start to make some cash flow, but
as long as the mental framework's there. And it's funny, like, I have a decent amount of experience with it, because when I first started Vibe, we took on these clients that they were co-hosts, or not, I'm sorry, not co-hosts, they were arbitrage guys. We co-hosted their properties. They had properties in like Philly, North Carolina. It was like 20 properties at once. So at the time I was like, man, this is sweet. And it was terrible, man. Like they had these like shady business practices where they were doing this trick, and it was the worst thing. They were saying in their description or in their rules or whatever, I forgot how they framed it, in their fees, right? In the fee section of their Airbnb listing, it was like, there's a $50 general maintenance fee per day, right?
Okay.
So I thought it was a $50 general maintenance fee, period. The way they pitched it to me as the manager was, yeah, everybody pays $50, and then we have 24-hour maintenance. I was like, that's pretty good.
Okay.
$50 for that is like, okay, I didn't love it, but I was like, that is what it is. And the whole idea is you collected the money after the booking. What these guys were really doing is they were setting up these really strict cancellation policies. They were relying on the fact people weren't going to read everything in its entirety.
Yeah.
The guests would book, and then they'd be like, wait, I have to give you $350 because I'm staying for 6 days or something, whatever it was.
Yeah, it's shady.
So I figured it out. Obviously, like it took me a few days, but I was like, wait. I didn't think this is what we were talking about. So that was like just the worst. But that was like, I think the catalyst for that was they had all these arbitrage units and they weren't making money. So then they started getting into like shady.
We need to find a way to.
They had to find a way to cash flow.
Yep.
You know, and it was a way to like, it was shady and it sucked.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad we touched on it because I think it is, again, it's a viable way to get started and learn, but long term, look to actually build equity in a business, right?
And yes, 100%. And like you and I both discussed this, like, because you're trying to do the same thing with what you do. That equity to me is huge. The ability to maybe sell my business one day way down the line is huge. The ability to leverage my business as an asset is huge. A lot of the best real estate investors that I knew when I was in my watching and listening very carefully phase, they were dudes with like businesses. They had businesses that were cash flow, and they're like, guess I'll start buying some real estate.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, good problem to have.
Yeah.
How do I do that? It's
Yeah.
like, we'll start a business. What business do I start? And I was like, well, short-term rentals is like the biggest pain in the ass of all time. Why don't I do that? Because I bet a lot of people aren't going to want to do this. There is just, it is an unforgiving business, man. There is a lot of wheels. Anybody tells you it's easy, they don't do it like I do it, man. It's just like a lot of heartbreak, a lot of upsetting situations. I mean, clients upset, and happy, right? Like it's not doom and gloom here. Like we have a lot of like really satisfied people as well, but it's like, man, again, like I just became a real estate agent, for example. So
Did you?
Yeah,
license.
So, but breaking news, by the way. I don't think I announced that yet. But I'm only doing short-term rentals. And one of the main reasons I was doing that is because, going back to what I said earlier, people kept coming to me like, look at my short-term rental, it's great. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's really bad. And now I feel so bad for you. I'm going to manage it. And it's going to suck for me, but I'm going to try to make this work, dude. Like, it's heartbreaking, man. Like, nobody wants to tell like somebody like, hey, your place sucks. It's not good.
It's a hard conversation to have.
Dude, it's the worst. It's not fun. It is not fun. And like, I see like early versions of myself. Like if I, instead of starting a management business, I just started buying short-term rentals, like stuff that I probably would have thought was sweet, that now I know is not sweet because I have the concrete data on it. You know, that's another reason we cast such a wide net at Vibe. We'll go up to Oneida past Syracuse. We'll go up around the Finger Lakes to Ithaca side. We'll go down to Lake Ontario. We got a new awesome place opening in Sodas Point. We'll go up to Orchard Park. We got places around the Buffalo Bills Stadium. It's like, I will drive that hour and a half for that concrete data. That data is just as valuable to me as the house.
Hell yeah.
I want to know where I can invest. I want to read an AirDNA report. That's fine. They're good, right? I want to know what a house can do with my systems under my control. And now I know that my client's carrying costs. I know what I'm making, and I can add everything up and be like, this is an easy choice for an investment, you know? So,
And that's powerful stuff right there.
very powerful.
Let's talk quick about Airbnb regulations. I think this is a big topic right now, especially the stuff going on in Rochester. Want to give a quick overview of what you're seeing in the regulation space?
A lot of regulations, man. I mean, again, it was all very predictable for me. Like, it's why I cast this large net I was just talking about. It's why I started my management business. I wanted to be able to pivot to markets that were short-term rental friendly because impending regulation was inevitable. It stinks. You know, I personally wouldn't invest in any short-term rentals in Rochester. I would invest in mid-term rentals in Rochester. Great market. There's people that have very successful short-term rentals in Rochester. There's good appraisal plays, right? And like that trifecta we talked about where you can back out. So it's not like all danger, but me personally, I'm not doing it. We see it throughout the Finger Lakes. Certain towns, like Geneva's one. Like the city of Geneva is relatively friendly, but the town of Geneva, it's like 5 months a year. That's all you get for short-term rental. You see like new taxes coming in from the towns, like hotel taxes coming down from New York State. So it's like, It's rough.
Yeah, there's a lot out there.
It's rough, man.
Is there like a place you go? Is it just general like certain places online you go to see these regulations? You just see them in the news, or like what do you? How do you keep a pulse on it?
Yeah, it's tough. Like honestly, like I personally have so much going on. I know what's going on, but I'm not like the head of the like. The people ask me all the time, like, why aren't you taking a more active role in this, like political lobbying and stuff? I'm like, I can't, man. I got to focus on what I can control right now, which is my business and providing guests and owners the best experience I can. Like that's all I got in me right now. But I know there's FLX VRA, which is Premier Properties. They have like a vacation rental alliance where they really kind of know what's going on, which is cool. It's a great resource. And in regards to like Rochester and stuff, you got to be involved in like the ZAP meetings and know like FRIA, for example. I know they're pretty good with that type of stuff, knowing the regulations. Yeah. Like the vice president, once this stuff came down from New York State, like immediately sent it to me, like, check this out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's just be aware, ask the questions to the people who do know before deciding to buy an Airbnb in the city of Rochester and thinking that it's going to do great because of all these regulations coming down. So just stay knowledgeable, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. There. I mean, like before you invest, and it's like, I mean, like for me personally, to answer your question a little bit better, once you hone in an area you want to invest, right? Let's say it's Dundee, New York, right? It's like, call the code enforcement officer.
Yeah.
Hey, what goes on into starting a short-term rental is, some guys will be like, what's that?
Yeah.
Great. Hang up the phone. All right, good. You're my town. Other people will be like, well, you got to do this. Yeah. We're going to put a cap on them. Probably not where you want to be.
Yep. And you're getting it directly from the source.
Yes, exactly. So like you have to do your due diligence, man. Like you got to run your numbers, talk to local property managers, talk to somebody like me. Hope for the best.
All right, let's say it's 2024. I'm a young entrepreneur. I want to get my first Airbnb. What's your best tip in finding a great property to Airbnb? Are you going on the MLS? Are you going off market? Like, how are you finding that deal if you were starting over in your younger 20s right now?
I've found it. I know some guys that are finding off market deals that are short term rental. The problem is like, oftentimes people that are finding those off market deals for short term rentals, they've built out an entire apparatus for flipping. So they're two separate businesses, right?
Yep.
So getting relationships with those guys and let them know, like, listen, if you make 20 grand flipping paper, I could care less. If the deal makes sense to me, aces, make your 20 grand.
Yep.
I was just talking to a couple of the guys about this the other night, one of our meetups. So that is a good place to start. See who's flipping, see who's holding notes. Check the auctions. What market do you want to invest in? Like that's key for me. Like narrow down your markets, right? Because if it's not falling in your market, then there's no sense in actually running the numbers and doing your due diligence in the first place. It's tough, man. Like I would definitely advocate for co-hosting management or arbitrage before you do anything at all. Just make sure you like the business.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's tough. Like it got this reputation as being passive. I don't know where that came from. But people really thought like, yeah, you throw it up on Airbnb, you're good to go. It's like,
and that's a great point to hit on, the difference between long-term and Airbnb. Like long-term rental is much more passive, a true investment, right? Airbnbs, you're running a business. Like let's not get confused. Like it takes time. It's not passive. You're going to be putting time and energy. Like you said, you're going to be driving out and putting out fires. It's a business, but that's why you make more cash flow, more revenue off Airbnb versus a long-term rental.
I always say it's like, you ever listen to Dan Carlin? You like history at all? History podcast? Well, Dan Carlin, he's a really great history podcast dude. I've listened to a lot of his stuff. And when he talks about the Japanese in World War II, he'd say the Japanese were everything, just more so. And I love that quote. And that's like kind of what I refer to short-term rental investing. It's everything, just more so. It's everything but more. Every headache you're going to have with long-term rentals, you're going to have with short-term rentals, but more.
Yeah.
Every headache you have with a tenant, you're going to have with short-term rentals, but more.
It's amplified.
Yeah, everything's amplified.
Yeah.
But same thing with profit. The profit you're going to get, you're going to get it with short-term rentals, but more. So you have to ask yourself.
That's how it goes. That's the balance right there.
Yeah.
Right?
And then for me, a big part of like what I wanted to do was build out an infrastructure where I wasn't going to have to personally deal with all those little things at my own personal investments. That was another main reason we started Vibe. Vibe got so big that we kind of been focusing our efforts on Vibe itself. But originally it's like, dude, if I can just pay for like a halftime maintenance guy and somebody to answer phone calls, like I'm just gonna start buying stuff.
Yeah,
that's
you
own.
You have a machine that's like
exactly, and then I don't gotta drive the salt shaker out. That was the goal.
Yeah.
So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, I love it, man. Real quick, if someone, let's say you were talking about a market you wanted to invest in. Let's say they want to invest somewhere outside of, they're located here in upstate New York, but they want to invest somewhere outside of upstate New York. How difficult and different is it from being local to trying to run an Airbnb, let's say in a different state?
Man, I don't know how anybody does it personally. Like, I think it's difficult to run an Airbnb that's like a mile down the road. Or not a mile, like 100 miles away, you know, something like that, where it's like an hour and a half drive. Because I know it's difficult for me to do that. I mean, it really depends on, again, like how involved you want to be. Me personally, like I would hire a local manager.
Yeah.
There's no chance I would do that.
Yep.
But I've talked to people that have done it successfully. You know, I've talked to out of state investors, like being new to this real estate thing. I'm starting to get calls and people that want to invest in the Finger Lakes and they're like, yeah, I'm going to self-manage. I'm like, great. I don't push them. I'm interested to see how you do it.
Yeah.
You know?
So you're like genuinely interested.
Yeah. So, yeah, for me, I'm not doing it.
Start local.
I would.
Yeah.
Certainly. A lot of people trying to move their money down to Florida and stuff like that. But listen, I was just talking to one of my clients the other day. He's got a couple deals he's doing in Florida. He's like, man, people say this is the land of milk and honey. And it comes with its whole, he's like, I got to buy hurricane windows.
Oh, yeah.
It's like $9,000 for a window. He's like,
flood insurance.
There's a lot of regulations, flood insurance, hurricane insurance, like, and you look at like what we're doing in upstate New York with like flips and the housing market's like, dude, the long-term rental thing leaves a lot to be desired, I think. But there's a lot of ways to monetize and make money where we're at right here.
Oh, there totally is.
And I would start here.
The grass isn't always greener on the other side. It really isn't.
Man.
Yeah.
And people, a lot of times too, it's like, well, I want to invest in a short-term rental in this location because I also want to go vacation there. It's like, well, do you want to retire there? No. Then don't do that. Find the most profitable short-term rental you can, and then you can take the excess money and just pay for your vacation at whatever this location is. You know, if you're going to make $100,000 a year here or $150,000 a year here, and your vacation every year costs $10,000, then take the $150 and spend the excess money on your vacation every year.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Yeah.
So like that's another thing I really advocate for, that people. It sounds so obvious, but a lot of people I don't think about it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's weird.
Let's shift more towards mindset, just as an entrepreneur.
Cool. This is my favorite type of stuff.
How do you overcome failures as an entrepreneur?
So we were talking a little bit about like kind of being a little bit more empathic feelers, like especially as like a younger male, like it's difficult. Like, you know, you're always supposed to be like this stoic and strong. It's like, dude, I try to be those things, and I think I am those things, but I also like feel intensely. So things hit me really hard, man. So to me, the biggest thing that you do when you fail is you acknowledge your failure. Like, don't be a child. Don't make excuses. Also make sure not to, there's like that Jocko Willink mindset where it's like, everything's your fault. It's like
extreme ownership.
Extreme ownership. And I like it, but it's like, you got to be careful with that too. Because now you're people will take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Once you're like, well, this is my fault too. It's like, great, you're going to pay me because it's your fault. It's like, I'm just being nice. It's actually not my fault. It's your fault. I don't want to pay you now. But no, I mean, don't be a child. Like, be an adult. Own your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. Adjust accordingly. Redo your systems. Keep your mental strong. Like, entrepreneurship is going to come with pitfalls and failures. It is inevitable. You know, but the big thing is like, how do you react to those failures? How do you overcome? I know it sounds cliche, but it's so true.
It's so true. Yeah.
And
how do you have any tactics, tips on how to create a strong mentality? Are there things you do daily to get that mind sharp?
For sure. Like, I've dropped off as of late, and it's something I'm really trying to refocus on. It's like, you know, you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And, you know, there's like, ignorance is bliss, and it's also a choice. And I spend a lot of time thinking about ignorance is bliss, and I've actually come to the conclusion that we use that as like to almost make fun of people. Like, ignorance is bliss, but it's like, no, it's actually kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And if you're just moving through life, I think about the movie like Clerks, where like they just kind of work at a gas station. It's a couple of friends hanging out. I'm like, that's my retirement plan. That'd be dope. Like, sell people coffee and gas.
Sure.
Work a quick 6-hour shift and go home. Great. Mm-hmm. But it's like, man, once you get into the world of entrepreneurship, that is not your life. And ignorance is also a choice. It's like, we live in the most technologically revolutionary time ever. We are undergoing the time period we are living in right now. If we make it another 1,000 years, it's going to be like, dude, this was great. Look how quick technology increased. Like, you are a walking cyborg. You have the extent of the world's knowledge at your fingertips.
Seriously.
Like, it's wild. And if you're choosing to be ignorant, I get it, man. Sometimes I wish I chose that. I just lived in a
I
cabin
get
in the
jealous
woods.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I was just like, man, shrugging my shoulders. But it's like, I didn't. And now I know lots of cool stuff. And now I have to kind of use that and leverage that to make the life I want for myself.
And this is what I signed up for.
Exactly. And it's like when we talk about being that combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with, like it doesn't have to be like your Uncle Johnny, like talking about football all day. Like I like football. I like my uncles, but I don't want that to be my big 5.
Yeah.
You know, like who are your big 5? It's like, find them.
That's huge right there, especially for myself. Like, I have a lot of high school buddies that I still try to see here and there, and I don't want to lose connection with them totally. But if you're going down the road of becoming an entrepreneur, what you just said is like so fucking important. Like you need to find people, and the conversations you have on the daily need to be things that are growing you personally, growing you professionally, because if you're surrounded by people who are just not living the same life as you, they don't have the same goals as you, they're just completely different, and that's okay. That's fine for them, but you need to find the people who can help you grow to where you want to go.
There's this really like controversial statement. I think about it all the time. Like, again, man, my whole background, I started working with at-risk youth when I was like 19, like making no money. Like I got a heart for the impoverished. I have a heart for the oppressed. Like it's a big part of my why. I'm hoping one time at some point I'm able to monetize my business where I can really make an impact, right? Like that's why I say, everybody says that when they start off, then they're rich, they turn into assholes. We'll see what happens with me, but we'll see. But I think about this quote a lot where this dude's like getting interviewed and they're like, do you hang out with poor people? And he's like, no. And they're like, why not? He's like, poverty is contagious. He's like, I don't want to hang out with poor people because it's contagious. And I was like, it's a stupid way of saying it. But I think what he's talking about is mindset. And I think a lot of poor people would be like, it is contagious. Like we're fighting every day just to see where the next meal's coming from. We're fighting with all this stuff. Like we're not thinking about entrepreneurship. It's like, it's so true, man. Like mentality is contagious. Like there is a physical form to like mental thought. Like Marcus Aurelius said, like you are the quality of your thoughts. It's like, man, is there anything that's ever been said that's more true than that? Yeah. You are the quality of your thoughts. It's like, damn, now what am I doing? And it's like, we get inundated, right? Like I'm reading Marcus Aurelius and Tim Ferriss and John Green and David Clear and all these different great thinkers. It's like, well, what actionable steps am I taking to act on the reading? Like you look at a book like the Meditations, that could be the only book you read the rest of your life. It's like every day find something and it's like, well, how am I doing this thing today? This piece of advice, you know? How am I not reacting to the people around me, right? Like this is what I'm gonna focus on this week. It's like, that's one little sentence in one book, you know? So it's like,
we all, including myself, fall into the trap of reading all these books, right? And just seeing all this information, but not really truly absorbing it and like putting it into action, because that's the most important part. You can read all you want, but if you don't do shit with it, it doesn't matter.
I don't listen, like, so keep it real. I don't listen to Bigger Pockets anymore.
I don't either.
I don't listen to any of the short-term rental podcasts anymore. Like, I'm living it, man. Like, and maybe there's a part of that that's ignorant, but I've also heard like, I'm trying to think of who it was. Tony Robbins, where he's like, you know, you attend all my seminars, you watch all my videos, it's like, go do it. Like, how long are you going to listen to me say the same? Like, eventually you got to go.
Yeah.
And I'm real big on that, man. So like, I'm trying to do that. I think you are the quality of your thoughts. You are the quality of the food you take in your body. You are the quality of the exercise you get in the morning. You are the quality of the relationships that you have. Like your relationship with your significant other, to me, should be your peace. Shouldn't be constant work. Like, I know you got a wife. Like, it's good, man. Like, it's great. Like, waste a lot of time being single. You know, like, being in a relationship's great. Having somebody to love is excellent. Maybe kids. And the quality of the amalgamation of all those things. And it's lovely. And when you get all them firing on all cylinders, like, you're just an unstoppable force.
And that is it right there. And like, but it's a constant battle and keeping those in balance and in check, right? That is, and I think that's the goal of life. If we're talking deep, like, one day you're just going to be all focused on business, and maybe your personal life is lagging a little bit. Next day, bring that up a little bit. Business might fall behind, but it's just a constant balance back and forth. And whoever can do that the best is going to have the best life, in my opinion. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's yin and yang. Like, I think that I'm real into like the archetypes. Like, one of my favorite psychologists is Carl Jung. And he's real big on like kind of that, finding that balance more in like the most, the darkest parts of yourself, and also like the lightest, the best and the worst, and then like coming together and embracing your shadow, he called it. But yeah, man, like yin and yang, finding that balance, embracing your shadow, like that is the essence of life. Like, again, they call it human being for a reason. Like figuring out how to be in the world is very difficult, you know? And it's like, you also, if you look at like the more religious archetypes, like, man, they're there for a reason. You don't have to be religious, but like watch closely.
They know what they're saying. Yeah.
Even like you go back as far as like Aesop's like fables, like you could read the Brothers Grimm. Like those stories are important to us. They activate our monkey brains.
There are some things that are evergreen in this world that are tried and true, and you don't have to search for new answers when people already before you have figured out so much of life. And just going back to what you said, listen more than you talk, and you'll be astounded by how far and what you achieve, and just open your ears a little more.
Yeah, and like let in what needs to be let in. Like you can open up a part of the Bible and it's going to give you instructions on how to sacrifice a goat. Like unless you plan on sacrificing a goat anytime soon, like you don't need to focus on that part.
Yeah.
But you can also open up a section of 1 Corinthians that has the most eloquent way of putting love that I've ever personally read, you know? Or you can go into Proverbs and find all types of just like gems of knowledge. And then it's like, you can find modern day thinkers that are really delving in that. But I think another thing that is worth mentioning, if we talk about religion, it's like the fundamental tenet of all the world's major religions is, as far as I can tell, it's life is suffering, which is kind of wild. But if you look at like Buddhism, Christianity, it's like, dude, Jesus Christ had to put his cross on his shoulder and walk up a hill to his own death. It's like, that's a life of suffering. You know, you look at Siddhartha Gautama in Buddhism, it's like, dude, he just lived this lavish life in a palace where everything that was gross in the world was hidden from him. And then one day he leaves the palace walls and he sees like an old person, like a sick person, like a poor person. He's like, this stuff exists, you know? So I think it's important to embrace your suffering and figure out how to like overcome that suffering. And as far as I can tell, the best way to do that is to adopt responsibility. And entrepreneurship, man. What an excellent way to bring it all back around.
Because it really is. Entrepreneurship is personal growth. And I think that's why so many of us are so obsessed with personal growth, because you have to grow personally if you want to grow your business.
For sure.
It's 2 and 2.
It's nice to be Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up. It's nice, you know? But it's not going to fill you with much meaning. And to constantly pursue joy and happiness, that's not going to fill you with much meaning either. Because those are momentary pursuits. There's nothing lasting about them. The adoption of responsibility and to build a thing, I think, especially as like young men, is something that lasts and is most meaningful, or the closest thing we can get to providing meaning in our lives.
And the other part about that too is I kind of look at myself as a filter when I'm consuming information, listening to podcasts, reading. Just because you look up to someone, like a single person, doesn't mean you have to agree and believe in everything they say.
For sure.
And I've fallen into that trap of early on in my career, entrepreneurial career, following these figures on social media and resonating so much with stuff they say and then other stuff that they don't. And I'm like, wait a second, they're a human being and nobody's perfect, right? So adopting a mentality of picking and choosing the best things that resonate with you, and it's okay to leave the stuff that doesn't resonate with you.
For sure. And that's like, man, that to me, that's like, it's the peasant mentality, or like the crabs in a bucket mentality, or the mentality of like destruction over growth, where people are like, oh, you listen to like Jordan Peterson, great example.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson is anti-trans. Like, yeah, I'm not cool with that. I don't play that shit.
Yep.
Jordan Peterson also has the most eloquent way of putting Jungian archetypes I've ever heard. I'm not going to not listen to the guy just because this one section of what he does I don't agree with.
Yep.
And just going back to the Bible, I don't want to sacrifice a goat, at least not today. But if I were to ignore the entirety of the Bible because there's, anti-LGBTQ plus themes, or there's animal abuse, or you have to stone your wife to death if she wears wool on Monday or whatever, like, I can't forego all the knowledge and ancient wisdom in the Bible just for those things.
Yeah.
And even people like Sam Harris, for example, who is, he's like a great thinker. I don't know if you're familiar with Sam Harris.
No.
He's amazing, dude. He's a neurologist, and he's like a vehement atheist, right? And he's going to tell you, like, listen, I can walk into any Barnes & Noble and find you a book in a self-help section that's going to give you more than the Bible. It's like, there's some truth to that statement. But even he's not going to say like, well, don't read the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, read it. You know, read the Bible, read the Quran. I've read the Quran, man. It's ancient wisdom, just like the Bible. You know, read the Vedic texts. Read it all, man. And like you said, be a filter.
Yeah.
What parts? And same thing with consuming. And that, dude, that's tough. Because people really question you in the zeitgeist of our time today. God forbid you tell the wrong person, you listen to the wrong thing. It's like now you're in a half an hour argument. Like, bro, me personally, I don't talk politics.
Me neither.
You won't catch me talking politics. I'm as well equipped as somebody can be to talk politics. At least I used to be until before I dropped off. Like that was where I saw my life going. I'm a major in history. I'm a social studies teacher, and I spent thousands and thousands of hours consuming all the best political idea, thinkers and stuff. And I had a point where I'm like, dude, this is not bringing my life any value.
Yeah.
And it's not only that, it's like, I'm not even having like, this is a meaningful conversation. It's like, I'm not going to say something to you and then you come back to me and you're like, so that means you think this. It's like, no, I don't think that. If I thought that, I'd tell you.
Yeah.
I don't. So now you're arguing against stuff you don't even believe.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I don't have the patience. It's not fun. So like, I don't do it personally.
I don't either. And I had another conversation with another guest about politics, religion. And if you're a smart businessman, don't talk about that shit on your social media, because guess what?
Oh, yeah.
You pick one side, you lose 50% of your clientele, and that's just a stupid business decision.
Yeah, man. Like, to me, that was like a huge relief to kind of like learn that and figure that out. And again, I think it's just more important to have these like meaningful conversations about like business and entrepreneurship than like the president's gonna be. Maybe, hey, call me a naive, call me ignorant, call me whatever you want, but here I am, and that's what I personally believe.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. What do you do for fun?
Man, so I was doing like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai for a little bit. I got to pick that back up.
What belt did you have in jiu-jitsu?
I'm a one-stripe white belt. I hated jiu-jitsu. I'm so bad at it. It's just not my thing. Anytime I like won, like if we were rolling and I like got a submission, it was just because I was like stronger than the person I was with. It was never anything to do with
just
like
my brute force,
my sweet moves.
Yeah.
Muay Thai, I was decent, but I'm old, bro. I'm 34, so these hips were never flexible when I was a kid.
Old. Come on.
I'm feeling it when I'm out there with like an 18-year-old kid that kicked my ass, man. And then that's the worst part. They've been training since they're like 6. We watched these superhero movies growing up. It's like The Punisher. It's like he washed up on the shore and some monk taught him karate for 6 weeks or whatever. Now he's a superhero. That's all I got to do. Sweet. It's like, dude, I did Muay Thai Jiu-Jitsu for like a year and a half and I was still getting scraped. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But that was cool. I hunt. I'm really into like ethically sourced food. At least it's something I'm like trying to get better at. So I like to bow hunt. I like to show my dog Beefy.
Beefy?
Dude, Beefy.
What kind of dog?
He's a band dog mastiff.
Oh, nice.
Honestly, I would love to get into a space where I'm doing more stuff like this and really like, listen, I like talking about business. And
dude, if you had a
entrepreneurship,
podcast, I would listen to every episode.
You think?
I would.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot coming from you. I'm really into, again, like once I get started on like the self-help, the motivation, psychology, history, like we didn't even get started on history. Like that's the type of, like all my tattoos are all like historical figures that represent like the Jungian archetypes.
Yeah, I love
it. So I
it,
have like Baldwin IV, Marcus Aurelius, Genghis Khan, Charlemagne. Like that's my shtick. That's what I really like. So going forward, I'd like to start doing more stuff like this.
Absolutely.
You know, like that's.
Well, we got a great studio too if you want to start a show.
I know, bro.
So
Trust me, I'm thinking about it.
let's talk about goals for the future. Where do you see Vibe going in the next couple of years? What are your real estate goals, personal goals, anything you want to talk about? Where is Josh going in the future?
So right now, like I got to really hone in this real estate agent thing. It's funny because I talk about it, I'm like, I didn't super want to do it, but like with the way New York State regulations going, eventually we're going to have to run our business the same way like a long-term rental management company does, which means you have to operate under a brokerage.
Oh, okay.
So I want to be able to have my brokerage license at some point and be able to shift and make sure one of the partners is a real estate agent. And I also want to help people find short-term rental investments, like, you know, like that are good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's big, like kind of honing that in and being able to help people and learn how to be a real estate agent that can really bring value to people looking for short-term rentals. Growing Vibe, but also like honing Vibe in. I don't regret. I was very, very aware of the fact that, if you ask somebody that's in short-term rental or long-term rental management in the beginning, like, what's your biggest mistake? Like, taking on the wrong clients, taking on the wrong properties. I read it and saw it over and over again, and I did it anyway. And I did it so I could hire. I wanted to start cash flowing so I could hire.
Yep.
And if I was just paying a maintenance manager to break even on their salary, great, I got one. You know, that's what I wanted. So now it's like, I want to grow. We're going to continue to grow. We'll be well over 100 doors in the next year. but I want it to be the right doors. We got to drop some properties off our list, unfortunately. Make sure we have the right doors. Again, going back, like really honing the real estate agent thing. I'd like to start buying again, maybe start doing a little funding for some bigger deals. I've missed out on some really good opportunities because I didn't know how to raise capital. So something like that, something I'm interested in. Yeah, man, just trying to grow as a human being.
Yeah.
Keep looking for God, looking for happiness, know. That's the most important stuff.
Cool, man. Love it. Parting piece of advice for a young entrepreneur listening to this amazing conversation here. Regardless of what industry they're going down, the path they're taking, if you had to leave them with one piece of advice as they start their journey, what would that be?
I mean, I got to go back to the cliches because they're so the ancient wisdoms. The best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is today. And it's like, dude, you got to start. And you don't need money to start. Start going to your local networking groups. Start pressing the flesh. Like, I love with Upstate New York real estate investors, when we host our events, I love seeing like the young guys in there and the young women in there. It's just the coolest thing, man. It's like, man, you're 22.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to crush me at my age.
So far ahead. Yeah.
So far ahead. And I'm rooting for them, So start like going to the local events, hobnobbing with the right people, figuring out where to bring value, start getting your mindset right. Like, if your mindset is not right, then nothing else matters, man. If you're miserable and rich, who cares? Like me personally, I don't care, man. Like, I would much rather be happy and poor. So like, get your mindset right so you can make sure once you get everything you want, that you're like, okay, cool, and you can actually enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Yep.
Yeah. You don't want to be a curmudgeon. Yeah, I would say like that. That's honestly like, I don't have a lot of advice for a start besides that.
Just
like,
jump in.
Just get in, start now, read, consume, be a vivacious consumer, watcher and listener, attend your local networking events, join all the local Facebook groups and stuff like that, and get started, man.
Get started. And you don't have to see the next step. There's this analogy I often refer back to is there's going to be fog on your journey and you won't know what's past the fog and you'll be afraid to continue, but you got to trust and know that once you get through it, you'll be able to see the next step. And you won't always know the next step, but if you surround yourself with people that can guide you, they will help you find that next step.
For sure, man, for sure. And there's a lot of great resources that are like perfectly willing to help young investors and entrepreneurs. Find them, find your tribe, man. Find your tribe, find your five, and have good intentions. And I think the path will really lay itself before you,
Amen, brother. Josh, thank you so much, brother. Let's plug your management company, Vibe. If you have a short-term rental and you're listening and you are sick of managing it and it's a problem property, give it to Josh. No, I'm just kidding.
No, my business is Vibe Short-Term Rental Management. Again, I'm not big on like hard sales. I'm real like an indirect background type of dude. You can always call me, reach out if you need help or have like questions, need guidance. I am a real estate agent now that's going to be specializing in the Finger Lakes region. So you can always reach out to me for that. And I have a speaking engagement with Freya on 7/11 at 5:30. Yeah.
Where is it at?
I should know that. Eagle Vale Country Club.
Cool.
Like that, I think that's where it's at.
Sweet.
So I'm going to be there talking about short-term, mid-term rentals. So if people want to hear more or just press the flesh, I'll be there.
If you need coverage for that, hit us up and we'll get some clips for you.
Word.
At
Appreciate
the event.
that. Yeah, nice.
Where can people follow you? Social media?
I'm a Facebook guy. So
Facebook.
Joshua Max Briner on Facebook. Join the Facebook groups. You got Upstate New York Airbnb Investors. Another one I co-manage with Marty Grisanti is Upstate New York Real Estate Investors. So we really kind of leverage those two groups together as one entity to cover the full spectrum of investment in Upstate New York.
Love it, man.
Yeah.
Josh and Marty are a unstoppable force. They really are.
So, man.
I mean, you put those two in a room, they're going to light it on fire. Seriously.
Trying.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this episode is valuable, and we will catch you in the next one. Peace.